Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. I am your host, Carrie Clark, and today we are going to talk all about how to use play to boost speech and language skills. So if you are a returning listener, you might notice my voice is a little deeper than usual today. I am getting over a little bit of allergies or sickness or something, but I'm going to make this one slightly shorter than usual so that I can make sure my voice will hold out through the whole thing. So I appreciate your patience through that. But I wanted to talk about play because our program that we teach from, a lot of the materials that are out there from other SLPs as well, they're all based on worksheets or here's how to work on this skill. And we focus on the instruction piece, but we don't always focus on how do we keep it fun and how do we keep it engaging. And the really cool thing about play is that when there's tons of research that shows that when we incorporate play into our therapy sessions, into children's learning, they learn things better and they retain them better. And so I really want to focus today on some simple strategies that you can use to use play to help boost speech and language skills. And this is for not only younger children who are obviously learning everything through play, but also for older children as well. I think, as we get into our older grades, sometimes we lose that playfulness and that ability to make things fun. And that really can have a big impact, especially on a child who maybe has been in speech therapy for a long time and they're getting a little burnt out on it. And if we can keep it fun and playful, that's going to help them. But it's also going to help us, right? Our adult selves also need to play. And when we can incorporate play, then we are less stressed out and our clients are less stressed out. And if they're learning better and retaining better, then that's even better. So all the benefits. Hey, Amy. Hi, Alessandra. I hope I'm saying that right. You guys can pop over into the chat and say hello. So we are recording this live. I don't think you guys were in here when I said it earlier, but I'm starting to lose my voice. So hopefully you guys will be able to hear me and my voice will hold out. But if you would like to participate in live recordings of our speech and language podcast, we do that every Monday at noon Central Standard Time or Central Daylight Time, depending on the time of the year. So you guys can pop over and join us over at hub.speechandlanguagekids.com for that as well. All right, so if we are looking at play and if we are looking at how do we use play to boost speech and language skills, here's the process. Here are the steps to doing that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we are looking at what skills the child is missing and we're choosing the correct skill to work on. Now, there's no right or wrong answer here, but I think that it's very helpful to choose one at a time to work on. And I know sometimes if we have a student in speech therapy, we might have them on many, many goals that we've written because we want them to be able to do all of the things, right? But when we're looking at play, it helps to focus in on one specific skill that we want them to work on. Now, if you are doing this as a parent at home, you can seek out the advice of a speech language pathologist who can, work with your child directly and decide what is a good skill to start with. But we can also just pick a skill for that play session, for that play activity, and just decide that's what we're going to work on. There's no way that you're going to hurt them by continuing to try to boost up their language skills. So sometimes just choosing a skill that they need to work on is good. So we can choose a specific speech sound that we want to model for them and help them produce. We can choose a specific language structure. So if we notice that they're always saying him's going to the store instead of he's going to the store, we could choose that kind of a structure. Or we could decide, hey, we really want to work on their ability to answer questions. And so we choose that as a skill. But whatever it is, we want to choose what the skill is, and then we want to decide at what level are they ready to work on that skill. So for our goal packets, our programs inside the Speech and Language Kids Hub, we take all the skills that we cover and we break them down into a step-by-step plan. And so if you think about this as, okay, what is the simplest version of this skill and how can I slowly build them up to the full skill over time? That can help you decide kind of how you want to model a skill, how you want to teach it, and how you want to incorporate it into the play. So for example, let's say you want the child you're working with to be able to answer questions. Okay, so if we just say any and all questions, That might work for some children, but chances are if they're in therapy with us or if you're listening to this podcast, they are struggling to pick up those skills naturally as they come up in regular conversation. So we need to break it down a little more. So let's say for this child who's struggling to work on to answer questions, we want to just focus on where questions, because where questions is one of the first question forms that appears in young children when they are starting to learn to answer questions. Where questions are really pretty quick on that agenda, right? Those ones come in first. So we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna focus on where questions, but we can focus in even further, and we can say, what is the simplest version of a where question that we could possibly do? So for me, I went through and I broke down how we teach where questions into a step-by-step plan like I do for all of our skills. And so the very first level I decided was, where's your nose, right? That's what we always ask little toddlers, say, where's your nose? And then they point to their nose. So they're not answering verbally, they're pointing to something on themselves. All right, so that I've decided is the simplest version. So we could start with some play activities while we're playing. We could say, okay, where's your nose? And help them point to their nose. Now, if they can do that step, then we can make it a little bit harder. And now we could say, where's your ball? And we can have them point to the ball or go get the ball somewhere in the room. So they're answering the question, again, with actions instead of words, but it's indicating that that they know that we're asking a where question, and then where means place, right? And then we can keep stepping it up. Okay, where is the ball now? And maybe we put it in a box or we put it on a table. And we say, where's the ball? Box or table? And we help them answer verbally. So now we're getting a verbal answer, but it's just a single word and there's two choices. And then we continue to make the skill harder and harder as we go along. And so this is really the key to working on skills through play, is to be able to take whatever skill they need, break it down to a really simple version of it, and then gradually increase the difficulty of the task over time. Now, if that feels overwhelming or sounds overwhelming, that's okay. Our goal packets do this. So all of my goal packets break the skill down into a step-by-step plan, and it gives you the exact steps that you need to teach. And then for each of those steps, we have one worksheet. So for some of our skills that are very play-based, the worksheet is actually just a guide for you on how to work on that during play. But for some of our older skills, the worksheet is several examples that you could go over with them. You could sit down and say, okay, we're going to work on the pronoun he. So we're going to use this to make some sentences. Here we go. Look at this boy. He is reading. Now you say it. He is reading. And so you can use the worksheet to kind of introduce the skill and help them understand what that skill is and give them a couple practice items. And then we can move into the play. And the play is where we make it fun. We help them engage with the skill. We encourage them to use it. We give them models. We have them repeat after us. And we tie it to something functional and fun so that they're more likely to learn it, they're more likely to retain it, and they're more likely to use it later in similar situations. Because here's the cool thing about play. Kids play all the time, right? And so if we teach them a skill during play, and then they go home and play that same way or with a similar kind of toy, then they are more likely to use that skill we taught them while they are playing in that other situation because they remember. Right? And so we can get more carryover, we can get more engagement. There's just so many benefits to using play. So I don't want you to ever feel like you have to sit down and just work on worksheets for 30 minutes because that's what Carrie's program is, right? Or that's what the other SLPs are handing out. It doesn't have to always be worksheet based. We can use the worksheet as a guide, and then we can work on that skill in play to reinforce it. Right, I can feel my voice already starting to go. Dang it. I was hoping I'd get a little farther. It's okay. We're going to keep going. But like I said, we're going to kind of maybe make this podcast a little bit shorter so I don't totally lose my voice by the end. Okay, so how are we going to do this? So I'm going to give you some ideas of different ways that you can incorporate skills into play. And this is one of those things that just gets easier the more you do it. So I encourage you to just try. Just try sitting down and playing and see if you can get the skill to come up during the play. See if you can model it the way I'm going to explain to you here in a moment. And don't beat yourself up if you can't right away, or if you say, wow, I think I only got in like 3 repetitions that first time. Because like I said, it's going to get easier to work it into play the more you do it. And that will just continue to improve over time. So just be patient with yourself as well. Okay, so the very first strategy I want to give you for play is modeling. So I think, especially for our speech language pathologists, if you are used to a very clinical mindset where you say, okay, we're going to sit down, you're going to say this, I'm going to say this, you're going to repeat it back to me, I'm going to say great job, and I'm going to mark it down. And it's very transactional, right? Like you get the reward if you say the word. So I want you to kind of put that mindset away, because that's not what we're doing during play. Play is more relational. So it's about connecting with the child and building a relationship and having fun, right? So if we say, okay, we're playing with this train, but you can't have it until you say train, that doesn't feel like play. That feels like work, right? So try to put that out of your mind. But instead, what we want to do is focus on modeling. So instead of demanding that they say something, we can say it for them and provide these models. Okay, so if we wanted the child to say train, we can take the train and we can hold it up right next to our mouth, because bringing their attention to our mouth brings their attention to our words and our models. So I can hold the train up right next to my mouth and I can say, train, it's a train. And then I can pause. Using pauses is another super great strategy during play, because it gives them an opportunity to repeat it. Okay, so you're holding up the train, you put it next to your mouth, you say train, you pause. If they say train, then you repeat it back to them. Train, yes, and you give them the train. If they don't say train, if they just start to reach for the train, you can say, oh, you want the train, train, and then you can hand it to them. So we're not making them say it, but we're creating opportunities for them to say it, okay? And this is key across all skills that you want to work on through play. We're going to provide a model. We're going to exaggerate that model, whether it's a specific sound we want them to say, whether it's a specific word we want them to say, a grammatical marker, a sentence structure, whatever it is we want to model, we're going to exaggerate it. We're going to bring their attention to our mouth, and we're going to create pauses to provide opportunities for them to demonstrate the skill as well. And then we're going to reinforce, right? So if they say it, we are going to reinforce by saying, yes, train. I love trains. So we're not saying, oh, good job, you said it. We're saying, yeah, train. I'm building on the conversation that we're having so that they understand that reciprocity of conversation. All right. Another suggestion here is, while we are doing our models, we want to stack the deck in our favor. So we want to create as many opportunities to model as possible and as many opportunities for them to say the word or skill or whatever it is as possible. Okay, so if our target skill is we want them to say the S sound and we're playing house, then maybe I have a baby named Sally and she wants some soup and we need some soup for Sally. Where's the soup? And so we can name things or add things to the play that incorporate the skill. Or if we want them to answer where questions, then we're just going to ask a whole bunch of where questions during that play, right? So stack the deck in your favor by creating as many opportunities to model the skill and encourage the skill as possible. And like I said, if this is a new kind of play for you, it will take some time getting used to it before you go, oh, I could have named the baby a name that had the skill, right? So there's ways to do that as well. Okay, let's see. Also, recast their errors. That's another strategy that we can use. So if they do the skill, but they do it wrong, they say the sound incorrectly, they replace it with a different sound, they leave it off altogether. I say, where's the baby? And they answer with, I'm trying to think of like maybe her name, Sally. Oh no, that's not where, right? So if they demonstrate the skill incorrectly, then we can do what's called recasting their error. So we're just going to repeat it back to them, but we're going to fix it and we're going to exaggerate it. So if they say Tally instead of Sally, I'm going to say, oh, Sally. Listen, her name has our S sound. Sally. Do you hear the S? Listen again. Sally. So I can recast it and correct it back. Now, you don't have to do as many repetitions as I just did in that example. It could just be they say, him's going to the store. And you say, yes, he is going to the store. And you just move on, right? So it doesn't have to be, oh, nope, stop, say it right, or we can't play, right? Again, that's transactional. We want relational. So we're just recasting it. Another strategy we can use is creating communication temptations. So a communication temptation is when you provide an opportunity for them to use that skill and some sort of temptation to do so. Now, the best way to do this is basically sabotage. So you sabotage them. But we do this in a nice way. And you're going to watch the frustration level of the child, because you don't want to make them so frustrated that they aren't learning and they aren't practicing the skill, right? So we can use sabotage in nice ways, such as putting something that they want inside a closed jar and screwing the lid on really tight so they can't open it themselves. If our skill that we want them to do is say open, then that's a really great temptation to say open, because I can show you, first I'll model, right? So I put it in, I close it, and then I show them that it's closed and I say open, and then I show them that I can open it and take the thing out and give it to them. And then we play for a little bit, and then I put it back in, I close it, and then I give it to them and I wait. And I create the pause, but now I've created a temptation, right? Because they're probably going to want that open, right? And they know I can do it. So will they use their words to say open? And if not, I say open, and I model it again, but this time it's a question, and I pause and give them a chance. And if they get frustrated or if they say open, I'm going to go ahead and open it, but then I can just continue to model as I'm doing it, right? So creating those temptations, you could, if you're giving them a bowl of cereal, you could give them the cereal and the bowl without the spoon. Okay, wait, oh, but I don't have what I need. Now there's a temptation to ask for it, right? Or if we're working on he, I can say, what is he doing? And then I can pause. And there is a temptation to say he is whatever he's doing, right? So any way that you can just create more opportunities for them to use the skill. All right. And then if they're willing, a lot of kids will be willing to imitate after you. And you could say, oh, let's say it like this. Sally. You say it. Sally. And if they're willing to do that, that's great. But we're not making it contingent on the play. Like, I'm not going to play with you unless you imitate my words. That doesn't feel good for anyone. But we can still encourage them to imitate if they are willing to do that and if they're interested. Hey, Kim. Hey, Allison. Hey, Cassandra. Welcome, guys. If you guys have any questions as we go along, you can put those in the chat. All right. Now, those examples are kind of more for younger kids. So if we're actually just working those skills into play, honestly, that is my favorite way to work on skills with younger kids. They really don't learn well from worksheets. So being able to have the worksheet in front of you to maybe demonstrate a few examples or show them some pictures or some visual aids, but then being able to just work it into the play. That's really the key there. All right. That voice is going. Let's see if we can get through the older kids. So for older kids, it's going to look a little bit different. They don't want to play house, right? That's, if we're working with 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they're not going to sit down and play house with you, and that's not realistic. But we can come up with other ways to make our practice more playful so that they are still having fun, they are still engaged, they're not as stressed out, we're not as stressed out. So for older kids and teens, what you can do is have a game or an activity that you're doing and playing while you're doing your session, and then you just have them practice in between, right? If it's a skill that doesn't come up very often, maybe we're talking about passive voice or, some sort of grammatical structure that's just doesn't come up very often. It might be better to practice from the worksheet a few times and then take a turn in the game. It just keeps it a little more fun, keeps them from feeling quite so burnt out on it, and keeps the session moving, right? So you can definitely do that. You can also just have an activity that you're doing while you're working on your skills. So you could have a jigsaw puzzle on the table. You could go outside and play catch. You could go for a walk. You could, what else did I have on here? Oh, use fidgets and sensory toys. This is older and younger kids. Just having something to do with your hands, or like a sandbox that you're, drawing in or playing in, just something that you could be doing with your hands while you are working on a skill can make it so that we can keep working and not have to stop to take turns in the game. But it just makes it less onerous, I guess, like less stressful, less boring sometimes. Also crafts for older kids. If you had, like you could make little bracelets or beaded something. You could do origami, right? So just having something on the table that you're doing while you're working through those skills can be really helpful as well and make it a little more playful. Okay, one last strategy. So the last one is taking a skill that they need to work on and turning it into some sort of a challenge or game. I know, especially for my own children, if I can turn it into a challenge, they're much more likely to do it, right? They're like, oh, I don't want to brush my teeth. I can't do it. Oh, and they're like dragging themselves across the floor and their legs don't work because of course they broke in the process of trying to brush my teeth. And then I say, hey, I wonder how fast you can do it. I'll time you. Ready, set, go. And suddenly they're running and brushing their teeth so fast, right? So if we can just turn it into a game or a challenge. This is especially effective if you're working at that conversational carryover level, because you can just say, hey, every time I catch you doing this skill correctly, I'm going to make a tally, or I'm going to click the sports clicker. Oh, there's my headphones. I was looking for those. This is one of those sports clickers. If you can hear that on the podcast, it just has a little window that counts. So you can just, every time I hear you do it correctly, I'm going to count. And we're going to see how many you can get by the end of the session. Let's see if you can get 50 by the end of the session. 50 is usually the goal I shoot for. So that's a good way to do it. Or you can, if it's something you want them to remember to use their skill at home or in the classroom, maybe there's, marbles in a jar or some sort of counting thing where the teacher or the parents are rewarding them. So just making it into some sort of a fun challenge or game. And then I said that was the last one. It wasn't. I had one more. The last thing is to use the activities that we have, our games that we're doing inside the Speech and Language Kids Hub, because this week we are doing a carnival and game theme, which is why I decided to talk about play. And I forgot to say that at the beginning of the episode. But we are doing a carnival field day kind of fun activity theme inside our hub this week. So on last Friday, we made a ring toss out of a paper plate. I don't know where mine went, or I would show it to you. But we basically just took a paper towel tube, stuck it to a paper plate, and then took some more paper plates and cut out the middle so they're rings, and we made a ring toss. So you can do your ring toss while you're working on your speech and language skills. And then each weekday, I post a new printable activity that is based on a 20-sided dice roll. And so I have my 20-sided dice here. It has glitter inside, which is super fun. It sparkles when you roll it. And so what we do is each of our daily activities has some sort of a 20, not sided, it's a table with 20 lines. And there's a different activity or challenge or story element or something that happens for each roll. And so you have them practice their skill. They roll their 20-sided dice and they get a number. That number tells them what to do on the activity. So for this week's activities, they are all the carnival theme or a field day theme. And so today's is carnival ticket tally, I think is what we called it. And so each time they roll, it tells them how many tickets they won at a carnival. And then they get to pretend they get a prize. Or I think there are some prizes on there at the end, like you get a high five for 5 tickets. So just a fun little activity. And we're going to put a different one of those up every weekday. This week is carnival. Next week, I'm super excited. I just finished these. Next week is virtual field trip. So I have some links for you guys on the printable activities for next week. That is going to be a webcam, a live webcam of something. There's the zoo ones, there's the aquarium ones, there's an airport. And so you pull up that day's virtual field trip and you say, we're going on a field trip, guys. And you take them, you turn on the screen and you have that thing playing. And then there's challenges to do based on what you're watching. So those are going to be super fun too. But this week is play. We're talking all about play, all about games. It's going to be super fun. I hope you join us inside the hub at hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. And then join us next week for our virtual field trip week. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, I'm going to wrap it up now before I completely lose my voice. But thank you guys for coming to join me live. And thank you for listening to the recording. And we'll see you next time on the Speech and Language Kids podcast. Bye for now.